joining our webinar this afternoon. I know it's the middle of your workday, and we do appreciate you being here. Today's webinar is co-hosted with Arghyam, and joining us from Arghyam is Mr. Srichand Tava. I'm going to ask him to introduce himself.
Hey everyone, I'm Srichand Tava from Arghyam. At Arghyam, I build products and platforms that help in improving access to water across rural India.
Thanks, Srichand. And today we're going to talk about Tech4Dev's data platform, Dalgo. And we're going to talk about Arghyam's adoption of Dalgo and what problems they solved with it. Many of you already know what Dalgo is, but for those of you who don't, I'm going to give you all a brief introduction. So Dalgo is the data platform for social impact. So it does ETL and it does data transformations, and we do some visualization and data quality checks and certain other things. And we are specifically targeting the social sector. We built Dalgo because we noticed from our work in the social sector that many organizations have a lot of data, but struggle to extract value from it, struggle to generate insights, struggle to make data-driven decisions. And so here at Tech4Dev, we do various initiatives attacking this problem. And one of them is to provide a technology platform which is affordable and aware of the problems that the social sector encounters. Some of those problems could be cost, some could be performance, some could be just we don't know how to put things together and we need help in designing robust, repeatable data pipelines. We noticed that organizations collect data through multiple different ways, including but not limited to Kobo Toolbox, Avni, Google Sheets, Salesforce. And these need to be put into a central repository in order to be analyzed and visualized, because otherwise you don't get a single pane of glass and you have 10 different dashboards and 10 different tools, and it's very hard to make sense of things. We also know, and this is not limited to the social sector, but data invariably has errors. There are errors at data collection time. There are errors when a program's collection methodology changes. You might go from recording a date to a date and a time, and you need to be able to handle both of them in your pipeline. And there are things that naturally occur when data systems evolve. And we're aware of this, and we attempt to make available to our clients standard best practices, which have been discovered over the years inside and outside of the social sector. And so this is our tagline: spend more time learning and less time managing. We do focus on dashboarding because people need to see what they're doing. And dashboards need to be kept up to date with minimal additional effort from the data teams. So when data is updated at source, you would like your dashboards to update quickly. And for us, quickly means by the next day. So we don't do live updates like an e-commerce company might want to do, or an insurance company. But a next day update is usually enough for most people. So we automate the centralization of the data. We automate the transformations which get that data into a state amenable to visualization. We enable automated data quality checks, make sure a date is actually a date, make sure a phone number is actually a phone number, things like that. And of course, we do not disregard data privacy and data security at all. The pipelines are secure using standard internet technologies, and privacy can be, you can get privacy through role-based access, role-based control to the data pipelines, role-based access to the data which is inside your databases. And we help our clients automate all of this. I'm going to show you one more slide, which is a bit heavy, but it will give you a quick idea of what it is that we do. So we support several data sources, but the ones which we see most often are the ones listed on the left-hand side of this slide. So our client will come to us with the data source. They enter connection credentials into our tool, and then we manage to pull it into their warehouse. We pull it into the client's data warehouse. That's a central database which the client owns. So the data always sits with them. It doesn't sit with us. And then inside that warehouse, we perform SQL transformations as the client requires. And then once that's ready, then they can connect their visualization tool to generate dashboards. We offer a visualization tool as well called Apache Superset if the client doesn't have one already. And we're constantly adding new features to make this entire process easier. In particular, we've been thinking a lot lately about how to access data in ways other than through dashboards and visualizations. Because while every organization will have dashboards, it's not uncommon for individuals to have questions which are a little tedious to answer through the dashboards, because you have to know which dashboards are there, and you have to be able to navigate them and find the right chart and apply the right filters. And as we've all learned in the last year, we actually just want to do everything through a chat interface, and you just want to ask a question and get the answer, and we're working hard towards that. So that's Dalgo, and we're not going to take any questions right now. I'll be happy to answer questions at the end. And right now, I am going to hand over to Srishant.
Thanks, Rohit. Rohit shared a bit of what Dalgo does, but I think we'll get to hear more from Rohit once I walk you through what we've been doing at Arghyam and what this specific project is. In that context, you'll get to hear a lot more about the power of Dalgo and what it's been able to do in different projects in the development sector in India. Okay. Okay. So picture this. What comes to your mind when you're thinking about drinking water in a village, let's say 5 years ago? Please feel free to put messages in the chat. I have it open. I'll be looking at it as we have this conversation. I'm going to keep it very conversational, so please feel free to message on the chat. What we typically know, at least from a while ago, is there are hand pumps, there are water standposts, there are long queues in the mornings and evenings, and there are women walking long distances to fetch water. This has traditionally been what we understand and know as what the status of drinking water is in villages. This has changed in the last 5 years. Indian government has spent a ton of resources in creating infrastructure that is needed to ensure that there's sufficient water for every household, especially in across rural India. That is the Jal Jeevan Mission program. And to ensure that every household gets water at the doorstep, the program aims to install a tap connection in every household. So in the last 5 years, what we've seen is state governments lay the infrastructure that is needed for it, building distribution systems, laying pipelines, and adding individual tap connections to every household. So as the Jal Jeevan Mission is laying pipelines, building this infrastructure, once this infrastructure is laid down, you'll have to have people who manage these schemes. I'm talking about the specific case of Bihar. In Bihar, people who manage these schemes are called Anurakshaks. I'll talk about them when we come to the Bihar project. I'll briefly give you a sense of what each of these words I'm using and what the project is. Jal Jeevan Mission is the world's largest drinking water initiative. As I mentioned, it guarantees every household 55 liters per person per day. So once the scheme is running and its service guarantee starts, you can expect every rural household to get 55 liters per household. And all of these are managed decentrally. So someone in the village manages and ensures that every household gets water, right? Over the last 5 years, we've seen a significant improvement in how many households have had access to water in a tap connection in their household. In 2019, there were about 3.23 crore tap water connections. Now they're about 15 crores as of 2024. So we've seen a significant improvement in access to drinking water via tap connections. And the aim is to hit 19 crore, which is what the Jal Jeevan mission is for. Um, this is what Jal Jeevan mission is doing. Arghyam, in this project, we're working with AKRSP, Aga Khan Rural Support Initiative, to help strengthen the operations and maintenance of the Jal Jeevan Mission implementation in Bihar. So now that the infrastructure is laid down, someone has to manage these, someone has to know how to fix any issues that come in, ensure that the scheme is continuing to function and it has the right kind of finances to for it to work. All of those are what are some things that are being worked upon in Bihar. Some more context about Arghyam. Arghyam's been set up in 2005 with the express motto of ensuring that there's safe and sustainable water for all. Over the 2 decades, we worked in over 110 districts and in over 22 states. We've touched over 6 million people by impacting their access to water. And we've trained over 40,000 community citizens on ensuring on how to improve availability of water and ensuring sustainability of the sources from which they draw water. We're a very small team. We're about 70 members, and we have two people who play the role of product managers, and we have tech teams and tech vendors we engage with to develop platforms that the nonprofits we work with use. Our main focus right now is on three things: community participation, government partnerships, and working at scale. We see these three as integral parts to ensure that communities have continued access to water sustainably. And for this, we're leveraging technology and we're taking a DPI approach, a digital public infrastructure approach, to ensure we're able to solve the water crisis collectively. Yeah. So I've talked about Jal Jeevan Mission and what Arghyam is doing. In Bihar, each state has their own implementation of Jal Jeevan Mission. A different department implements Jal Jeevan Mission in each state. In Bihar, it's the Panchayati Raj department that does this implementation. In terms of how this works, every village has wards. This is very specific to Bihar. In a ward, you have a public water distribution system. It's called PWSS, Public Water Supply Scheme. Going forward, I'll just call PWSS. Each ward has a PWSS, and the ward itself manages the PWSS. It is managed by an Anurakshak. Anurakshak is usually someone who's 10th pass, average of 40 to 50 years old, and they're an elected representative. And usually it's a man. This Anurakshak is the one who have to ensure that they turn on the motor in the morning, turn it off. They ensure that enough quantity has been supplied. The water quality that's been supplied is of adequate quality, and the safety of the distribution system. So these are very integral to ensure that the long-term sustainability of these schemes exist. So here AKRSP is working with Bihar government to help Anurakshaks have the right resources and training so that they can ensure availability of water in every household. So let's take a case of Tawhid. Tawhid is a Anurakshak. He runs a scheme. He manages a scheme in Majolia GP in Sakra block in Bihar. Yes. So what is Tawhid's experience as of now, right now? So Tawheed has to do a few different activities on a daily, weekly, and a monthly basis. On a daily basis, he has to ensure that water is being supplied, adequate amount of water is being supplied. If there are any issues in the pipeline system that needs to be fixed and repaired, he needs to attend to them. He also needs to collect utility payments. So there are user tariffs. So every household has to pay a certain fee to access water. He needs to collect these fees and also do expense management at the scheme level. So he currently needs to have a sense of how is his scheme doing in terms of financial sustainability, in terms of the quality of water, and in terms of adequate supply. So for these, we've been able to introduce few different platforms so that Tawheed is able to do these easily. Here, Tawheed uses Avni. It's a activity tracking platform, and he uses Ngram Seva. That is a utilities, payments, and expenses platform. Along with that, we also have Soshan. It's a learning platform that we've deployed that allows for Tawheed and similar Anurakshaks to have all the training material that they need to have to ensure that they're able to run these public water supply schemes. So the problems that currently Tawheed has is he's doing a lot of different activities, but he has no sense of what is the data that he needs to know about how his scheme is functioning. That data is in multiple platforms. And when he collects these tariffs, he has no easy way to understand whether he needs to clear the dues, he needs to collect a lot more, and how the scheme at that unit level is operating. Because these three platforms are kind of independently built and are independently visualized. So Ngram Seva, which is the utility payments, currently exposes data onto a Google Sheet and some of those files into GitHub repos. Avni uses a visualization platform called Metabase, and Soshan uses a visualization platform called Superset. So Tawheed is in the field and he's using these apps to collect data and report activities. And now he has to go to 3 different platforms or even 4, and even some that come back to him as reports for him to understand the status of his own scheme. This was the challenge for which we try to create a solution. And for that is what we looked at Dalgo. As Rohit mentioned Dalgo is an ETL platform that allows for any organization to get data from different platforms into a single data warehouse. What have we done with this, right? We've taken different apps and we've done the ETL process so that we can put data into a single data warehouse. And then we've done transformations and visualized so that Tawheed is able to get a single clear view on what he has done, how his scheme is doing, and what he needs to do. This has been a significant change in how understanding of how each village and each ward is functioning, and also to the program team and the district and block teams to understand what are the schemes that are working and what need additional support. This is how, in terms of the flow of these different apps and data happens. What we've done here, along with getting data from the Avni activity tracker and the utility payments, is to map users, consumers, and ward-related information into a single mapping so that whatever data is needed can be visualized at that level, at a ward level, at a block level, or at a district level. We also have Soshan, which is a learning platform which we've built to be integrated, which is no longer being used. But how we envision it is whenever we add a new learning platform, considering we have already integrated and done the pre-processing, we'll be very easily able to plug that in and continue to get Tawheed the understanding that he needs to have a complete sense of knowledge, activities, and finances of his key. Okay, just give me a second. Yeah, so we've talked about Jal Jeevan Mission. We've talked about what Jal Jeevan Mission is doing in Bihar, and we've talked about what Arghyam and AKRSP are doing so that they can support Anurakshaks, who are the powerhouses of Jal Jeevan Mission. What does Tawheed see on a daily basis? Tawheed has these dashboards that we've now created using Dalgo. Tawheed has access to dashboards that give him a sense of what all are the meetings and activities that they are doing and he needs to do. On a monthly basis, Tawhid has to have consultation meetings with the village water committee. He also has to do a public consultation where he gets feedback from the community on all things related to water. And he needs to do water quality tests and other things on a certain frequency. This gives a clear sense of what his responsibilities are and whether he's meeting those responsibilities. This is related to the activities. Similarly, he has dashboards for service guarantee. How much money has been collected this month? How much is still due? And what are the current expenses that need to be paid at the scheme level? All of these are now visible to Tawhid in a single glance. Besides this, what we've also done now that we're able to consolidate this data, is to give him some kind of a health check, a framework to understand how his team is doing. We're calling that we're calling it the 5-star framework. Apologies, my Hindi is bad. I'm not able to read what it says on the top. But we've given them a way to understand what each thinks that they need to do and how they're contributing to the health of that scheme. All of these are now available to him in a single glance. What that is doing for Tawheed is he has all the information to act on to be able to call upon a sectional officer or a block officer to ensure that any repairs, any activities that need to be done, they can be performed because he now has actionable insight. The other thing that we feel is a strong change that's coming from this is now, because these platforms now exist and these dashboards are there, this is empowering Anrakshaks. Tawheed now actually has a trail of the work he has done on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, to show that this is the quantum of work he's done, because Tawheed gets an honorarium on a monthly basis. Each state has a different honorarium, and release of those funds not uh, are not easily done. So this also creates evidence for Tawheed to say that he's done the service that is guaranteed by the Jal Jeevan Mission. I've talked about what Dalgo platform has done because we were able to integrate all of these different sources. In terms of the inner workings of it, I'll ask Rohit to talk about it, because we've had quite a bit of work that's gone into doing this little change where I've shown from here to here, which was a single slide change, but there's been a considerable work that we've had to do to come here. Rohit, I'm going to go to that slide and I'll.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
I also want to point out that this is a project which is slightly unusual in the sense that the dashboards were not built for leadership, and they were actually built for the frontline workers. And not every client of ours starts off that way. Yes, so in order to get the data into the warehouse, you all will recall that during my Dalgo presentation, I mentioned that we have over 300 plus connectors, et cetera. Well, Mgram Seva was not one of them. But that's all right, because the technology that we use allows us to build connectors if the source presents an API. And Mgram Seva does, and we worked with the eGov team to get access to it. So we, for those of you who care, it was a Python API, and we hit various tables at the Mgram Seva side. And we, using this connector, we managed to extract the data into the Dalgo platform. And we do that on a regular basis so that it gets updated. For Avni, we already had a connector because Avni is a partner of ours. So we could also, that getting the Avni data in was easy. The hard part is actually, I mean, okay, this is also not, not necessarily easy, but the part where the challenge comes is when all the data is in one place in the warehouse, how do you connect it up and define your mappings and identify users from one data source with users coming from the other data source so that you can create your holistic view. And that requires lots of SQL and lots of data modeling, which the Dalgo consulting team did. And the way that this works is that the SQL is written by the Dalgo consultant on his or her laptop, in this case, her laptop, and then it's pushed up to the Dalgo platform so that when the Arghyam job runs at 3 a.m. or whenever it runs, it fetches that latest code and executes the SQL transformations on the fresh data set to create the data used by the dashboards. Yeah, and then the dashboards will update automatically because they're live, they're not PDFs. And you all already noticed how we had all the titles in Hindi because our users are Hindi literate, and we can do that probably for any Indian language because of the magic of Unicode. And so that was also the only downside of that, is that sometimes when we do presentations, we can't read them. Okay, Srishant, back to you.
Thanks, Rohit. So some of the challenges that we've also faced while doing this ETL process is these different platforms exist, and we also have to find a way to map who a certain user on one platform is to a certain user on a different platform. Even though these are platforms that were rolled out by AKRSP, establishing this was not a straightforward process. Some Avni platform had user accounts that got created at a central level. Ngram Seva had users that signed up using their own phone number. So in one place, you just have accounts. In the other place, you have phone numbers. And you have another listing of, let's say, all the phone numbers that are on record that AKRSP has mapped to this ward, this ward, this block. But we have no way to establish if that phone number that someone gave when they started the training process 2 years ago is the same one they used when they started doing utility payments. So creating a process for this and also verifying this was also something that Dalgo had to work on, which we're quite glad that we were able to find best practices and also mapping techniques to do this. The other thing is also in terms of the dashboarding that is needed. Why don't I talk about the considerations and I'll come back to that. So this is why we've used Dalgo, but we had to consider what platforms are out there before we chose Dalgo. So our current requirement for this project was we needed an ETL platform that could extract data from different data sources and applications, transform, and then load it into whichever visualization platform we need. Into the data warehouse. To do these, there are a few proprietary platforms that are there. There are open source platforms, or you can hire a data engineer to do this and trust that his computer continues to work so that all the data resides in his system, right? We had a few considerations, and we had a few considerations that we had when we adopted Dalgo. One was the platform that we chose should not come with proprietary lock-in. There are quite a few ETL platforms, open source ones, proprietary ones, software as a service platforms. In all of these, what we wanted to do was to take a platform that allows for, let's say, tomorrow when this scales to the government and government takes this platform from us, they're able to adopt these processes. So we don't have any equivalent would be to say a cloud native APIs and offerings that we can't now use because we've not done this ourselves, right? So we had to take a platform that allowed for us to replicate this when someone else is adopting this. That's one. And we also know that data engineers are an expensive resource. How do we find platforms and offerings so that we're able to do this without it being a very expensive affair? These are some of the reasons why we picked Dalgo, because that was designed for this and they have a focus in the development sector and still making a product that meets standards that any technology requirement needs. When it comes to visualizations, we looked at a few different platforms. We looked at Power BI, Tableau, and Superset. We went with Superset again because of two things. One is the platform lock-in. If you use Power BI, Power BI itself has ETL capabilities and pre-processing capabilities. Similarly, Tableau has offerings as well. We wanted it to be something that stays out of it so that we can switch from Superset to any other platform. So the ultimate adopter of this is the state government. So they should be able to choose if they have an internal dashboarding platform, they should be able to use that, or they should be able to use any licensing platform, any licensed platform that they have. Some states have Microsoft as a licensed partner to them. And for us, even in the pilot, one of the things was both Power BI and Tableau had per user license, even though our dashboard is pretty pretty limited in terms of its technical complexities. Both Tableau and Power BI had pricing based on user licenses. So for our 540 plus Anurakshaks, we'd be paying license fee for each of them. That's how Power BI pricing was. Tableau had a similar pricing, but it was based on servers that were deployed, and even the base server pricing became prohibitively expensive for us. Another thing is, as we scale, it becomes very price definitely becomes a problem when it comes to scaling this, because the licensing fee that we pay for 500 will then need to scale up to 12,000 frontline workers. Yeah, I guess I mentioned budget. Those were the considerations, and we also we were quite. I think we got the kind of support that I don't think we would be very easily getting this from us, from a ETL vendor or a platform that is not doesn't have the understanding of how the sector works, a nonprofit works, and the real world scenario of a government and a field worker and all of that. We were fortunate here because we had someone who designed platforms for the development sector and had the resources and the understanding to be able to give us that level of time and resources and thinking. So for that, we're quite glad that we were able to um, you get Dalgo on this project to help Tawheed get a sense of all the things that he needs to know on a daily basis. Yeah, those are our key considerations for Dalgo. And what we've learned from this experience are I'll quickly go through a few of them. One of the things that we've learned is don't build charts till you've you've gotten Tawheed and you've gotten your Unruxix to have a look. One thing that we've done quite good is to start from the field worker. We've started from the frontline worker. Usually, all these platforms have this view where you'll build it for a program officer, you'll build it for a state official, and then it comes down uh, all the way to the frontline worker. Um, I have a friend who says this that frontline workers are these people who collect data. Think of that as a balloon. They collect data and then they leave it. They have no idea what is happening after that, right? So here what we're doing is we're showing them that data. So that's one thing that we've done, that we're quite happy to do. In our learnings through this process is, if we were to know what are the dashboards that are needed, uh, that would have helped us shape what is the data that we need to model in a certain way so that it will help us create those dashboards. For us, this was a iterative process, and this was a lengthy process. I don't know if this would happen in any other case, because if you're working with a program and the program manager or the district manager or the block manager is sitting with you, they have a clear sense of these are the three things I want to see. And once they see this data, they'll say, maybe I need these two or three other as well. Here, considering it's flipped over, we've had a bit of challenge of it. So getting Anurakshaks to be part of this process while they build, I guess that's a learning that we have. And I guess that covers quite a bit of these. One is when we picked the platform, we were quite optimistic in what we can do with Superset, where we'll be able to modify it in a way where it becomes mobile responsive. We've had a challenge with that because Superset is not mobile friendly. It is responsive design, but it's not necessarily mobile friendly. So it's currently a challenge where I don't know if there's a meaningful workaround. Um, yeah, so that's been a learning. So how do we find a platform that works with all of our constraints and still does a good job for the Anurakshak at the end, right? That brings me to the last one, which is the medium of access. Um, because we've picked Anurakshaks, and Anurakshaks need to use a smartphone to track and report all their activities. I think for us it was a little bit easier because mobile was something that they already have and they use. When you're looking at dashboards or when you're looking at a platform like this, where you want to give data that is specific to their scheme, you'll have to look at what is the medium of access. That becomes a very important point to consider. Now that we have the Dalgo platform in place and we have the Anurakshak dashboards in place, what can we see now are things that we've previously not had visibility on. The block team can now very easily see what is the amount of funds that are available in each scheme. Are they equipped enough to solve a small minor repair versus, let's say, a major pipeline or a motor malfunctioning? Those are things that are available right now because that level of data is being generated and close to real time is being processed and stored. Right. That's also what the second point is. Yeah, I guess that covers what the Anurakshak is able to see. Tawhid is getting a real time view of how his scheme is doing, and the block and district officers are also able to kind of see the data that's needed for them to process and act on. So we've built the dashboards for Anurakshaks. What we still haven't built are the dashboards for the different actors going up. We have them, but we have to build them in the way that are at the aggregated level, not at a granular level that is showcased to each Anurakshak. So some of the few things that we want to do going forward is Tawhid has these dashboards. What can we do so that Tawhid has the actionable insights that go directly to him? Of course, if he opens this app, if he goes through these and understands, he knows how he's doing with finances. We have charts for it. Can we send him a message saying you have to do a overhead tank cleaning next week? All the activities are being tracked. Now collections are happening. Now we have a consolidated view of this data, so we can now send those prompts and messages and reminders from this consolidated view that we have. Rohit's talking about how they can build messaging and chatting capabilities to this. So I'm glad to hear that what we see is what we need to build is also something that's Dalgo team is also thinking about. And right now, Tawhid is the one who's managing this scheme. How do we make this data available to the consumer, to the resident, to the citizen in the village? For them right now, they might have a grievance system, or they might call the sarpanch, or they have some reporting system they have, or they might not. Now that we have this sense of how the scheme is doing, is there a way for us to showcase this to every household so that they know how their scheme is working, whether the utility will continue to exist in a sustainable manner? Yeah, so Glyphic chatbot, I don't want to talk much about it, but that's a plug I'm very happy to do. Besides that, I mentioned dashboards that we plan to do to give the junior engineers and the executive engineers actionable insights in dashboards that they can act on. Those are what we have um, going forward. I don't know if I can see everyone, but this project in Bihar, I'm working with Pankaj and Madhvi. If they're in the chat, please say hi. They've been the ones who've been able to work with Anurakshaks, uh, build the kind of dashboards that are needed, and constantly debate with me on what's the right kind of things that we need to do so that Tawheed and the scheme are doing the best. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, that's it. I don't really have anything else. We can open for questions. And if Rohit, you have anything else to add before that,
No,
please
nothing
do.
at all, Srishan. Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. Very easy to follow. And yes, we have almost 20 minutes. Yeah, a little less than 20 minutes for questions. And if anyone would, oh, sorry, before we do questions, we're going to, while we do questions, Abhishek Nair is going to share a feedback poll for this session, which I'll ask everybody to please fill out. I'm sure it's short. I'm looking at the chat. I don't see any questions waiting. So if anybody would like to ask, then please go ahead, and here we are. Okay, so Anwar has asked, if the solution is to be replicated for other states, what are the steps needed, the effort required, and the turnaround time?
Right. Maybe I'll just wait for a few more minutes if there are similar questions and we can address them together.
Sure. In the meantime, if people would do the poll, we have, I'm going to watch the results come in. By the way, the reason Srishant referred to Glyphic as a plug was because Glyphic is our sister product at Tech for Dev. It's a WhatsApp chatbot builder. We have 11 responses in. Oh no, 6. Sorry, 6. Here's another question from Jayesh. How do you analyze data across the states in which you work? So I suppose that means comparing how programs run from state to state. Here's a question from Anusha. Does the dashboard have access management? So do different users see different things in their dashboards?
All right, I guess there's enough people who've replied to the poll, so respond to the poll. So I'll start answering questions. Yeah. So what we've done is we've deployed Superset. I'm glad you've asked this question because we had to do a workaround for this. So our platform's Avni is a mobile app. It's on Play Store that anyone can download. And if there's a program, they'll have the forms that are specific to that form that they can start that project that they can start using. Ngram Seva, which is a utilities and payments platform, user tariff collection platform, is a progressive web app. So it's we in training we've added this shortcut web browser on all of their smartphones. The challenge that we had here was once we build these dashboards, where will they reside? We can't send this as a link in WhatsApp because WhatsApp chat flows happen, people change phones, WhatsApp gets reset. How will this change? How will this sit? Avni is an offline first data collection platform. And we have no way for us to integrate that because all data and dashboards that are there inside inside Avni, are offline first, which means they work even when there is no internet. But for our dashboards, they have close to real-time data. How do we show this? So what we had to do was in one of the platforms, which is Ngram Seva, we put a link of that specific dashboard for that specific Anurakshak embedded inside that platform. Because we've done this in a way, we didn't really have to take care of our user access management. Superset offers access management. You can create accounts on Superset. So Srichand and Rohit can have user accounts on that platform and then can have different dashboards based on what their permissions and their roles are. But we've not really had to do it because what we did was we created dashboards and we had them for all the Anurakshaks where all we had to change was either their ID or their scheme ID, either the user ID or scheme ID, and they can see it. So technically, if you know what another user's ID is, you will be able to switch from one dashboard to another. But all the data in our dashboards right now is publicly accessible without any PIA. So for us right now, that's okay. Thanks, Anusha, for asking that question. Do you have, does that answer your question? Do you have anything else? If so, please message. I will switch to the next question. How do you analyze data across states in which you work? Jayesh, thanks for asking this question. So from 3.3 crores to 15 crores, that's happened. This is not something Arghyam has done. This is what every state has done. This has happened because there was dashboards, there was reporting platforms that each states had that got collected at a central level, which is what led to this level of impact in such a short time. What I can do is maybe quickly show you what this looks like. This is something that the government has built themselves. So as of 2019, this is the state of households in each state, how many households were covered to now. So you can see that, in fact, if you go to, I'll share this link on the chat. You can go to your specific village and you'll be able to see what the status of uh, piped water system and household tap connections in your village are. So this is built by the Jal Jeevan Mission, National Jal Jeevan Mission. And in terms of how our analysis of the states we work in, we support the State Department to do this. So they analyze and they store. In the Bihar case, they didn't really already have platforms in place. So this Dalgo platform and the data collection and the utility payment platforms are what we envision as what can become what the state will use. So right now, in fact, you can look at Assam. Assam has what's called JJM Brain, which Assam government themselves have built, and they have a dashboard of how each village, each scheme, and each block is performing. Okay, I will come to Anwar's question now. Rohit, if there are any more questions I've not answered, please please
I
mention
think
it
you
to me.
can go ahead with Anwar's, and
Yeah.
I'll bring up the
Hey,
others as I'm
Anwar.
reading through this.
Thanks for asking. I know that you have vested interest in this so that you want to take this to other states. Anwar is a colleague of mine. So Anwar, so in terms of where we are right now, these are platforms, and we've gone beyond proof of concept because we've done this in pilots. But in terms of its replicability immediately to other states, it there are a few factors. One is the state's appetite to own or build these platforms, and second is, do they currently have any existing processes or platforms that they're using for either utilities or for doing these activities? If I were to give you some kind of a turnaround time, if one state plans to do this, is in fact, I'll actually give you some information. So the Ngram server, which is the utility and payment platform that we're using, National Jal Jeevan Mission has taken this on and is offering this uh, as a as a technology platform for every state to adopt, which is called Nal Jal Seva. So you already have the utility payment platform. What we now need to do is add a learning platform and a activity tracker. Um, the activity tracker we've used here is Avni. I see Vinay from Avni also in this call. Um, if I were to give you a sense, maybe if a state uses Avni as the activity tracking platform and the utility payments already exist, uh, the Dalgo bit, which is the ETL, and the Avni deployment would take maybe 3 months with all the required data and mapping that's done for a state to roll this out. But I guess each state will have its own considerations on what to choose and what platform to go with. So that will be dependent on each state and whoever is helping that state roll out the Jal Jeevan Mission operation and maintenance support.
Shishan, Sujit has asked if this system is integrated with the Jal Jeevan Mission. I think you started to answer this partially by saying that even Ngram Seva is WIP.
Yeah. So the Ngram Seva platform that we're currently using in Bihar is deployed in our own AWS instance, specifically AKRSP's AWS instance. But Bihar has an option if they were to now do a deployment across the state to use the offering that the National Jal Jeevan Mission is doing. Right now, the instance we have deployed is not connected to or is centrally seeding this data into a government platform. But that's something that we're working towards, so that a state can either take this and then modify and scale this, or adopt a similar process and build their own.
Thanks. Then the Society for Community Participation and Empowerment has asked if anything similar has happened in Karnataka, and I mean, or is anything planned?
In terms of the technology platform efforts, I don't think something like that has happened in Karnataka, but I know that Jal Jeevan Mission's implementation is happening at breakneck speed even in Karnataka. I might not be able to answer this, but if there's someone from Arghyam who's doing source sustainability or is taking care of the Karnataka initiative, they'll be able to comment. Right now, nothing like that exists, as per my knowledge.
Okay. If anyone from Arghyam has the answer to that question, then please feel free to put it into the chat. Then there's a question from Kala. What is the volume of data in each source? Do you have this? I don't know this. So the Avni volume in either records or megabytes or.
Okay. That's a good question. I'll have to take a guesstimate, but maybe I can tell you in terms of records rather than a storage size. So let's take the 500 Anurakshaks that we're currently working with. They generate over 100 households. They generate anywhere between anywhere around 2,000 to 3,000 records a year. This is the current activities and the payments and the bills that they're doing. I've taken an average of 50 to 60 households in a village. It scales up to 100, 200, or how long they've been doing these operations. This is just some estimate. I don't think for it is the volume of data, but it's how quickly it is presented and it's processed that is a factor for us. Where it might change significantly is right now we don't have a digital trail. Right now, what the process is doing is if Tohib is conducting a meeting, he's conducting the meeting in the real world and then is mentioning that he's conducted a meeting. The next meaningful jump from this is to record that a meeting has happened and have a way to have a digital trail for it. So take a photo or enter the meeting minutes in this thing that is certifiable or verifiable. When that happens, all of the images and the logs also get generated. Then the volume might significantly increase. Not at the moment. That's not a challenge for us, right?
Rohit, can I ask one query?
Okay, sure. Go ahead, Sushil.
Yeah, actually, where Srichand has just defined the entire product and which having Dalgo, Avni, and M Gram Seva. Okay, and Avni belongs to Samanvay Foundation. Dalgo is Tech for Dave, and that M Gram Seva belongs to Digital IGA Foundation. Okay. And having, I think, both these three team having different infrastructure processes and the things. So if any state, suppose, has to develop such kind of product to strengthen their water system, so I think it would be very tough for them to understand the entire infrastructure, what you guys have used. So could you please just give, you can sort of summarize picture of how we can just suggest any state to implement such type of process within the system so they can replicate the processes what we are doing in Bihar?
Sure. So if you're talking about how a state government can run these things themselves, well, the platforms are open source. So if they have the right technical capabilities, and then maybe with a little bit of help from us, they could spin it up on their own servers and have it run. So Dalgo is open source, Avni is open source, Superset is also open source. Mgram Seva, yes, I think so.
Is open source.
It is, no? Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking at that document. So I think everything, I mean, being open source doesn't mean you can just do it in a weekend, but with the right people, then they could run it on their own infrastructure and have complete control, and therefore not be dependent upon us as a service provider, us or Avni or whoever.
I'll just add to Rohit's response here. Right now, if a state were to adopt this, as I mentioned, it depends on what the state department's technology skills are or their appetite to adopt these platforms, customize these. What we see from our learning here in Bihar and also my colleagues who are working in Assam, our learning is that something like this is needed. Every state, as they roll out these and tap connections are there, they will run into this problem because now you have the infrastructure, they need to maintain it. They need platforms to do transparency, to do compensation for the frontline workers, all of this. How do we make it so that any state can adopt is a question that we are grappling with ourselves as well. But what we see here is this can become an offering, or this can become a platform with some consolidation of the activity tracking, activity management from Avni, and the utility payments from Nal Jal Seva, which is Ngram here. With some of these inner I guess I would say customizations that are done so this can work in this specific one need to be done in every state. So there are 2-3 different things that could be done here. One is I'm very much open to helping you to take this to whichever state. What we can do is talk about our experience and point to the documentation, and Dalgo, Avni, and Eager would be keen to give the code base, help you deploy, or even if that's something that you want them to kind of implement, start a conversation with them. In an ideal case, if a few states see this as a shared problem, this should become something that the National Jal Jeevan Mission is able to give as an offering. Yeah, that's those are my 2 cents here.
So a state will collaborate with whom?
Sorry, Sujit, I need to interrupt you. We've passed 3 o'clock. We will stay on for a few more minutes, but whoever needs to drop off, please do so. And we're very thankful that you joined us today. The recording will be available on our YouTube channel tomorrow. You might get an email about it. If you have a question which we've not yet answered, and if you are able to, then please stay on and we'll answer questions for a few more minutes.
Abhishek, just a quick thing. Sorry. Abhishek, can you drop my email address in the chat? If anyone wants to reach out, I'm happy to help. streamline@arghyam.org.
Sure. I forgot
to put that in the slide.
Yeah. You can go on addressing whatever questions there are. I'll put that in there.
Yeah. Rajiv has a very interesting question. He's asked, when you find JJM portal, it shows that almost a village population has been covered with pipe water supply scheme. But in reality, we found that overhead water tank is not able to supply even to one household. How this Dalgo will help in visualizing real scenario / picture? I don't know if our current platform can solve for it, but the approach we've taken and we see this journey helps is you don't have any visibility right now to even contest that you're not getting water or there is not sufficient water getting. If you have systems in place where all of these activities are tracked and you get visibility into these are the reported activities and reported service delivery, then communities, citizens have a way to contest this data that is being reported. So right now we're in the second phase. We're building these reporting structures and dashboards. Once we make this available to a consumer, the state's consumer grievance redressal mechanisms or the Jal Jeevan Mission's redressal mechanisms should be able to answer these. That's a problem that we might not be able to tackle it ourselves, but we'll be able to empower citizens to kind of also act on their problems now that they have contradictory information about their village water system. Yes, thanks for that. Yes, Vinay, yes, multiple states can potentially use this if JHM makes this as an offering. If you could maybe Jal Jeevan Mission or water scheme sustainability DPI of sorts. I think that answers most of the questions. Jayesh has asked if data pipeline fails, how does Arghyam come to know about the same? So we have a dashboard that Dalgo has offered to us. Right now, in that dashboard, we can see all of the flows and when has what all the operations that the pipeline does. If it ever were to fail, we'll get an alert. I don't know if there are systems put in place to do WhatsApp alerts and all of that, but technically they are possible if we were to now build this and build this to production at scale.
So what we have in the pipeline, so you already have Discord notifications, but that's on our Discord server, which you probably don't check, and it's easier to just check the website. You will get email notifications soon in the next couple of months. We are building out a notification system. And we also have a nice feature, which I'm going to plug, which is that the logs which are generated by the system, by our underlying tools, etc., can be summarized by an LLM to produce a human readable error message. A lot of these error messages are not readable. This feature is already available if you come to the platform and you read your logs and you generate an AI summary of the errors, but we'll integrate that into the email notifications as well over the next few months.
Okay, there's one last question. I'll take that and we can then end. Anvesh has asked, can you talk a little more about how data is verified? If a report says a tap is functional, for example, how do we know if it's actually functional? What are some quality control measures taken? Thanks. So in this specific case, the Jal Jeevan Mission in Bihar context is different from other contexts. Maybe the Jal Jeevan Mission project that we're doing in Assam is a little different. I'll just give you some sense. Here, the pump operators and the scheme managers, which is the Anurakshaks, in this case, Tawhid, we're trying to do so that Tawhid can manage his scheme better. Right now, Tawhid and people like him have been running the scheme for months and years without getting compensation for it. So they're essentially helping the community get water without getting recognition or payment for it. So our problem that we're trying to solve is how do we empower so that they're able to do this quite well. But it's a very fair question that what do we do so that we can have a verifiable way to say if someone's saying something and reporting something, how do we know that? In the Assam case, what we're trying to do is if they say scheme, if they say they've supplied a certain amount of water every day, the way for us to have a digitally verifiable system is to know that this is the amount of water they've supplied. So if you were to look at it, one way to do that is to have a IoT sensor at the distribution pipeline. So we know how much water they have supplied today, how much water they're supplying tomorrow. And that would mean significant investments in every pipeline and every distribution system across the block and across the state. What we're piloting there, that if Anwar still on the call can talk about, is we are getting the Anurakshak equivalent in Assam, who are called Jalmitras, to take a picture of the meter every day after they've turned on the motor and turned it off. So every day you can actually see a change in the meter reading, and have some way to have a man in the middle, human in the middle system to verify it, and have an OCR to recognize that. We have a bunch of hypotheses we're testing to know that what data is being reported is close to the real world scenario. What we understand very clearly is whatever data gets reported is not 100% accurate or reflects the real world. What we can do is to bring the real world picture closest to what the data is being reported, or both of these data sets closest. That's that will be the major chunk of work that we'll be doing going forward.
Thank you, Srichand. I think we're out of time. For any of you who have remaining questions, email addresses have been provided in the chat. We invite you to write in. Thank you all for joining us today. The turnout was good and the participation was good. We feel very accomplished for the afternoon.